Okay, so as I was saying, the friend from my family member was telling my family member that they cannot stop. They understand that they are being basically used for money, but that they still can't stop helping their relatives who are back home in another country. And so, one day, guys, this friend from my family member called our house, and they were explaining that some of their relatives, some kind of relatives, called them up, and they were needing some kind of money. So then they were asking my family member for that amount of money, and my family member said no, because they were not going to allow them. Like, my family member explained it to them that they were not going to allow their relatives to use them. So my family member was telling their friend that they were not going to enable them to allow their family members to use them. Okay, you understand? So then my family member's friend became furious, very angry, because they believed that my family member was now betraying them, when of course that's not the case. My family member was just giving them some good advice, trying to help them to put a stop to what their relatives were doing to them. But this person did not want to see it that way. They were so blinded by the love that they have for these abusive relatives that they didn't even see the reason in what my family member was telling them. So they were having so in this phone conversation, this friend from my family member, guys, my mouth is getting numb, so sorry if I'm repeating myself, because it's getting difficult for me to report to speak, because I'm not cold, but I don't know why my mouth is getting numb. So in that phone conversation that my family member was having with this friend, that was the last time that they spoke. So after, that person got mad at them, that person got mad at my family member, and my family member ended the conversation with them, and that was the last they heard of them. And this was almost 4 years ago. It was very close. It was at least 3.5 years ago. Yes, I would say 3.5 years ago. So then, not too long ago, or what was it? Last year, my family member said that they had, was it last year? Yes, it was last year, I think at the end of the year of 2018. My family member said to me that they're wondering about how their friend is doing, because they were in a really terrible situation, and financially, and also their health wasn't too good. So they're just wondering what's going on, and they would love to give them a call just to see what's going on with them. So I told my family member, I said, if you call them, nothing is going to change, because they're going to believe that their behavior towards you does not have to change, because it is you who are calling them, not them who's calling you. So just understand that, the way they're going to treat you is not going to change. The only way their behavior is going to change is if they were to call you, and if, depending on what comes out of their mouth, is how things would proceed from that point on. So if they were to call you back and say, I realized that I was wrong with the way that I got upset with you, and I'm very sorry for the way I treated you, and I would like for us to continue our friendship, and I'm no longer allowing these relatives to use me anymore, and I'm sorry for the way I believe that it was their responsibility to help me, to enable me to allow my abusive relatives to use me like that. If the conversation went like that, then okay. But if the friend calls back and says, they'd like to resume the friendship, but it's clear that nothing has changed, then of course you're not going to, I told my family member, if the person calls back and it's clear to you that they have not changed, then you cannot continue, right? You just can't continue on with them. So this is why it's not a good idea. I told my family member, it's not a good idea. It's a very, very bad idea. If you call them not knowing whether they've changed, whether or not they've changed, it's not a good idea, because if they haven't changed, they're going to expect for you to still be there for them in the way they were expecting you the last time that you had that phone call when you spoke last. So I wouldn't call them if I were you. And so my family member's like, yes, I know you're right. But and to my surprise, my family member said, yes, I understand. I mean, you're right about that, but I'll just see, I just wanted to see, like, even though if they haven't changed, I'd still like to see what's going on. And I said, okay, but just understand what you're getting yourself into if they haven't changed. Right? Number one, they haven't called. They can't call us now anyway because our phone number's changed, but our phone number just changed about 6 months ago. No, our phone number changed around 4 months ago, right? And so my family member wanted to contact this person last year. So this person has had up until 3 or 4 months ago to call here, and if they had truly made any changes, they had until that time to call, but they didn't call. So I told my family member, I said, don't depend on whether they've changed or not. You need to move on, because look how much time has passed and they haven't called. So you don't want to reconnect with somebody like that. You don't want to do that. This is what I told my family member last year. And I think my family member even brought it up again this year, like before the phone number changed, how they'd like to call the person. And I told them again, I explained the same thing to them. I said, just understand what you're getting yourself into. The ball is going to be in their court, not yours. And yeah. So my family member said, yes, I understand that. And they didn't say anything else after that. So guys, it's not good for people to depend on another person for finances, no matter what the reason. Now, the story that I just gave you, it's a little bit different, but the what's the word? Application is the same. Like, okay, for my friend, right? My friend was, the third time my friend expected for me to help them, and I told them that I couldn't do that. That's one example, right? My friend thought that I was going to be an indefinite source of finances for them, for their life problems. So that's one example. And the example of my family members. Wow, look at those clouds. I have to show you. Hold on a minute. I'll show you. Look, isn't that cool? Wow, that's really pretty. Very beautiful. It's gorgeous. Okay, I'm going to set this. Whoops. I'm trying to set down the tripod, and I'm kind of getting. The legs of the tripod are kind of hitting my feet. Okay, so now it's on the floor. Hold on. Okay, sorry guys for moving like that. Yeah, so the example that I gave about my friend, that's one example, right? And then the example that I just gave about the friend of my family member, it's the same thing, but it's a different kind of application for the money that that was being given to this friend. The money was coming from financial institutions, right? They were depending on other sources, whether it was a person or a financial institution. They were depending on other sources to solve a financial problem in some area of their life, which in this case was their relatives. And this was a very abusive case, because this friend from my family member was allowing people to pressure them and to manipulate them into getting money, no matter how, in what way, just to fund their life. And they don't care about this person. They don't care about them. And the sad thing is that this friend from my family member would even tell my family member that they are fully aware that these relatives don't care about them. They have no concern about their well-being. They don't care about their financial state. They don't care about even their physical state, their medical state. They don't care. All they care is about money that comes from them. This is what this friend from my family member told my family member. These relatives don't care a thing about them. And so anyway, my point is, it's very sad when people depend on another person or a financial institution to keep funding something that they are needing, something that they are needing some kind of financial help in, right? So the relatives of my family member's friend, since they could care less about this friend, they should be asking God. They should be saying, Lord, what can I do in my life to help you in some way? Like, they should be asking God to give them ideas for how they can use the money that they're getting through their jobs, or however they're getting their income. They need to be asking God, Lord, how can I help you to help your ministry here on the earth? And if they're not going to a church, then they need to find one to start going to, or some kind of a ministry to start giving the money to start giving the tithes and the offerings, because they're depending on a relative in another country to fund their lifestyle. So they need to be doing that. They're depending on somebody to fund their lifestyle on a continual basis, right? And it's crazy, because my family member's friend, who has these types of relatives, they are helping their friends. They're helping their relatives to live this kind of lifestyle. So they are enabling their relatives in another country, to live the kind of life they want to live off of the money that they are borrowing and that they're in debt for now. So that's really, really abusive. So that's crazy. So, to summarize, it's not good to be depending on people or whatever source for a constant financial help, because it always turns out for the worst. People will not always be there for you to keep helping you financially. They're not going to be there for you all the time. And financial institutions, financial institutions will be there, but the more you borrow, the more in debt you get into. So that's another trap. So yes. So if you are in a situation where you are helping somebody financially and you can't do it anymore, then you need to just be honest with this person and tell them you can't do it anymore. You've helped enough and you can't do it anymore. And do not say, I wish I can help you more, because if you suddenly come into a situation where you can help them more, guess what? They're going to come to you and say, well, now you can help me. Please help me some more. And you're going to have a hard time saying no. And you're going to give, you're going to continue to give, and then you're going to be left without any money from whatever you've received. And then there you go, right back in the same situation as before. So you need to stop. Stop helping people that you cannot afford to help anymore. And even if they are really sweet people, even if they're really, really nice, you have to explain to them that your situation does not allow you, does not afford you to continue to help them. You tell them that you cannot afford to continue helping them because you have your own things that you need to take care of. You have a life where you have financial responsibilities. Maybe you have a family and children, or some parents or grandparents, siblings. You might have pets. You might have a business. Whatever it is, you have bills. You have things to pay. Maybe you owe money, right? So it's okay to help, but it's not okay to continue to help forever or for a long time. You cannot put in your brain and say, okay, I'm going to continue helping this person for a year. No, you can't do that. Because in the Bible, God tells us that he didn't mean for us to be hard pressed for the sake of another. If we are going to be in a financial trouble and we're also helping other people, it doesn't make sense to help other people when we are struggling and suffering, but while we're helping other people. And I guess yes, because, right? Because if you're struggling because you're helping another person, that's okay. Sort of, it's okay, as long as you don't do it forever, because there has to come a time when you put a stop to it. And if that person is not giving 10% and offerings from the money you're giving them, then guess what? Their situation is never going to get better, because whatever you're giving them, God is expecting for them to give, to remove or to deduct 10% from that money and offerings from that money. So that's how it works. So people that are receiving money from others, just because they're not receiving, the money's not coming from a real job or any other place, it doesn't mean that they're exempt from giving tithes and offerings, because it doesn't work that way. Whatever money you receive, even if it's a gift, 10% and an offering has to come from that. Yep. And it needs to happen like that. So like I said, if you are helping somebody and you are really, really struggling, you have to stop. You have to stop. Approach whomever it is and say, I can't do it anymore. And, tell them, I feel bad, but I just can't do it anymore. I'm struggling, and I'm going to get into a worse situation if I don't stop helping you. So you just need to be honest with them. Whoever it is, you need to be honest with them. It's very sad when people take advantage of other people just because it's easy for them to do it. I'm not saying that everybody who is receiving help is taking advantage. No, of course not. I'm explaining that it's sad for those people out there who are taking advantage of others financially because it's easy for them to do it. You see, there are people out there who are despicable. Okay, what I'm trying to say is that there are people out there who are in a very terrible financial situation. And so they ask people for help because they genuinely do need the help. They don't They are completely struggling, and life is really, really hard. They need money. They need things, right? So that's okay. So they somehow find people, friends or whomever, family, relatives, whomever, to help them, and that's okay. But because they're the kind of people who are despicable, because they are the kind of people who are despicable, their intentions are to continue to leech from this help, from the people that they're getting the help from, for as long as they can. They have no intentions of improving their situations with the help they're receiving. Their only intention is to get as much help as possible for as long as they can, and then they move on to the next person. So just because they genuinely need help doesn't mean that it's okay. Like, it does, just because they genuinely need help doesn't mean that it's okay for them to use that as an excuse to use people on a forever basis for their money. That's really grossly abusive. And God is watching. God is watching. Remember, guys, that God gives people a lot of opportunity to change what they're doing in private before He exposes them. Okay, so for people who are listening to this, if you are amongst those despicable-hearted people who are using others for money because you are in a terrible situation, God's going to expose you. And a lot of you are saying, yeah, right, what a joke. How can God expose me? That's not going to happen to me. Okay, well then, continue on with what you're doing and see if He won't do it. Because everybody that mocks God gets exposed. Everybody that mocks God gets a grace period to change their behavior, and then He exposes them. Because even people who mock God, even people who mock God have a grace period before they get exposed. So it's not up to you as to whether you will hide your actions from the world forever. It's up to God. He has a limit for when, for how long you keep, your sins are hidden from the world, to when He will expose them. So that's up to you. Yeah, so like I was saying, if you are amongst those who are giving to people and you just can't do it anymore, just be honest and tell them you can't do it anymore, because you are now at the point where you're at a level where you cannot do it anymore. Just tell them that, and you have to be strong. Because if you're not going to be strong and upfront, you're going to continue to allow your friend to take from you, and they may be a very sweet person, but you're going to allow your friend to continue to take from you when they should no longer be taking you from you anymore. Not taking as in like stealing or being manipulative or like, yeah, like that's what I mean. Like, they're not being mean or trying to manipulate you by crying and all that. Don't leave me. No, not like that. They're not being that way, but they're just being very nice. But you need to be upfront with them. Okay, and then there are those who are manipulative, who say, oh, please don't, I can't stop. Like, if you were to tell them I can't help you anymore, and then they start like agonizing and like, no, you can't do this. What am I going to do if I don't have your help? If your help stops, I can't do it. Look at that taxi. It looks like a psychedelic taxi. Did you see that? So the friend or person or whomever, relative, family, whomever they are, they're going to be like, I can't, or even a boyfriend or something, or a girlfriend, I can't do it anymore. I mean, if you don't help me, I'm going to really suffer. And then they start crying and they start like they'll sit down on the sofa or whatever, or in the chair, and they put their heads into their hands and they're like crying and like, you can't not help me anymore. You have to continue helping me. If you don't help me, I'm really gonna suffer. Where am I gonna go? Where am I gonna live? What am I gonna do? I don't have any food. I don't have any medication. What am I gonna do? So you cannot allow that kind of behavior to weaken you into continuing on with the help. That's called manipulation. And what I learned, guys, I learned some time ago. When did I learn that? About 6 years ago, 6 or 7 years ago, that manipulation is witchcraft because it's messing with your mind and it's convincing you of something that really isn't. Okay? They're lies. So that's really wicked. So don't let people manipulate you into continuing to help them when you can't. You cannot do that. Not good. Well, I'm hoping that my voice was not really drowned out because I can feel a wind, but I don't feel the wind really hitting up against the microphone like of the camera, because the mic, I guess, it's like it's not an external microphone, it's just a microphone in the camera, right? And it's positioned behind the camera, which I am standing behind the camera. That's why my voice sounds loud when I'm standing behind the camera. Yeah. And yeah, so anyway, guys, just make sure that you develop the strength to tell whomever it is that you cannot continue helping them. Remember what God says in the Bible. He didn't mean for us to be hard-pressed for the sake of another. He doesn't want us to get into financial hardship for the sake of others. Because if we get into financial hardship, how are we supposed to provide for ourselves and our families and our pets, guys? And our bills and things like that? We can't. It's 27 minutes. I'm going to come right back. For those of you who don't know, my camera stops recording every 30 minutes, so I will be right back.